Good Lord, it's another episode of that LSE. In this one, I'm going to be putting the back axle back on and hopefully getting to the bottom of the welding repairs that need to take place on the sill and so forth. But anyway, enjoy the video. Right, these things are not light. Now, how does that work on the edge of the pan like that? Let's go like that. Hear that? That's all backlash. So we're going to have to take these end caps out, sort this out. I thought the measurements were fine. Here, Dale, look what I've got. Oh yes. Probably that one. Knocking roll pins out. I'm not dismantling the disc, so I don't have to kind of mark everything up. I'm just knocking the roll pin through. Roll pin is out. Take the little locking washer off, drop them in the tray. Same on this one. Because it's this thing inside that wheel that stops the wheel from moving. You with me? Come on, Richard. Almost there. Go. He's off, he's off. Go back in there. Rolled up. Right, let's check the backlash on this thing now. I've got the coffee primed and phone is here. Waiting for Giles to give me a call back about his not overheating Range Rover. So, in order to measure the backlash, I've got the differential mounted up on a block down here, which I've cut a little B in so the diff mounts flat. The reason I've done it this way, rather than putting it in a vise, is not all of you will have a vise big enough to accommodate one of these things, and also they're very heavy and unwieldy, and I'd rather have it on a big flat bench than kind of like, you know, balanced in a vise. So, I've got a block of wood down here. Let's show you what I've done. So I've got a block of wood, and on let's take the nose piece off there. On the block of wood, you can see it's got a nice big V cut into it, which can the differential can balance on. There we are, like that, and it becomes nice and stable. And the next thing I do is I've got this. It's a special tool. This one. This is a kind of original Rover tool here for adjusting differentials. And nicely, it's got two pins here, which I can put onto the centre of the pinion. So it's go that way round. It only fits on one way, and then I can lock it against the bench. So it's going to basically mean that when I'm rocking the crown wheel backwards and forwards, it shouldn't move the pinion. Is the idea behind that? Because obviously, if you're rocking it backwards and forwards, and either the diff is moving or the pinion's moving, then you're going to get a false reading, aren't you? So let's do this the way that you could potentially do this at home. Now, where are we? Let's get this chappy. So I just want to adjust the dial gauge so that it is on a wheel, on a tooth, and I want to kind of have it like that. So basically what I've done is I've rested the tip of the dial gauge on a tooth. It might want to come down a little bit further actually, because I'd rather it was kind of definitely on the tooth. Oops. Thing fell off the back then. Right, now we'll turn the gauge on. Zeroed, beautifully zeroed. Okay, take a little bit of plastic off it. You might be able to see it, I don't know. Oh look, as I pulled it off, it went to 1 thou. Right, now I want really to hold the differential needs to stay steady. But what I'm looking for here is a maximum and minimum reading on the end flow. So it's a case of just getting yourself settled and moving the thing back and forth. So I've got 19 thou to 16 thou, so I've got 5 thou. Actually that says 4 to 7 thou, so it could be absolutely fucking playing wrong. 4 to 7 thou. So, and again, in order to set this thing up, you want to just knock the 2 pins out, wind the left wheel off, to the left wheel, wind the left wheel out, wind the right wheel in until you're just about getting no backlash between the crown wheel and the pinion, and then get that set up so that the pin can go back in it. Do these up, then wind the other wheel in. But the thing is, this is a tricky bit. You can't accurately check the backlash unless these are torqued up to 60 foot-pounds. So it's a case of winding in a bit, torquing them up, checking the backlash, undoing them, winding in a bit further, checking the backlash, and so forth. It is a bit of a faff, but it is entirely possible. You cannot move these rings when these are torqued up to 60 foot-pounds. If these are torqued over 60 foot-pounds, then you'll end up, you know, in a bit of a disaster. And really, when you're doing the crown wheel, it is possible to do it without that, but you're going to have very, very, very sensitive hands, because as soon as I move this anywhere, I can feel it moving the pinion. Right, and there I've got, and again, I'm getting, so 33 to 29, so I'm getting 4 thou of an inch. So that, to my mind, is exactly where it should be. That's going to go in the diff, in the axle. That is a diff, Richard. That's going to go in the axle. Just need to give a little clean up around the gasket faces. But the process is actually quite well laid out. And then once you've done this up, and you've torqued it down, and you've got the right end flow, ideally you would want already, when you're adjusting this, to make sure that the pin is going to go into the relevant tooth, because the last thing you really want to do is have the backlash absolutely bang on, and then you can't get the thing in there. That'll be a bit stupid. And then once it's torqued down, that's it, and then you're there. And then you remember how this thing was when I first started. If I now take that off, oops, here, balance you down there, and now sounds nice, and no clonk, 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 clonk. So I think that's all right, actually. I've got 4 thou of backlash, pinion backlash. I've got the crown wheel run out is within tolerance, and I've got the pinion bearing preload set correctly. So the only thing that's remaining for me to do on this thing is to put a seal or into the pinion. So just need to take that nut off there. In fact, I can roll this thing over now and stand it on the nice flat surface, which is actually perfect for the dial gauge, but it sits better on that. Put that in, nice seal, and we're done. It can go in the axle. Well, go in the axle, then I can weld the axle up, then I can put the axle in the car, which is today's job. Old nylocks, it's not ideal to reuse it, but if you have to, all I do, use the pointy end on a hammer, I just bash the top edge a couple of times where the nylon goes across, and it will create another seal. And we can whiz this up. Check it works. It does. A little bit tight on that seal. Should be alright though. Is it going to work? It's just a little bit tight on the outside edge of that seal. Let's take that off again. That off. A little bit. It's got in just a little bit further. Just pushed it just below the lip because I want it to seal, but I don't want it to be dragging on the. It's not gone in level. Soon will though. That's now. That's better. Right, now let's try it, then I'll do my nylon trick again. That's better. Beautiful. Oh yes, just push the seal a little bit below the surface in order to produce a good seal against that. Now, I'm going to need to torque this up properly. I suspect it was torqued up, but let me do that properly. Then I'm going to get on to welding the axle casing. Drop this in, get the axle back on the bloody car. Stop fanning around. So yes, Richard, it's about time you've got that bloody axle on that sodding car. Crying out loud, what are you doing, you ham-fisted gibbon? Right, oh, that's still warm. Don't know why. Right, welded a big old plate on there. And filled in on the reverse edge with a load of weld. So it's not likely to rot out anytime soon. That's done that. Next thing I really need to do is to thoroughly clean the inside of this casing. So I've done it a couple of times. Let's position you here. Clonk, clonk, clonk. Sorry folks, clonk. Clonkety clonk, clonk, clonk. Fucking tripod. Now, the problem I've got is that when I shove the rag through the inside, you see all the glitter on there? Yeah, that's all particles of steel. So I've been through it about a dozen times now. Now I've finally got another clean rag. I'll just put it into the end of the tube. Rag's up here. Another clean rag. What's this going to say? Now that's a t-shirt. There you are. Wedging in the end of the tube. It's easier to push down towards the middle than it is to push from the middle to the outside. Now, pushing with my handy scaffold tube here, and then we've still got a fair amount of glitter on there, haven't we? It's going to have to be continually shoved through until the glitter stops coming through, I'm afraid. That's the reason I'm using the old car. Well, I got there in the end. Basically, used the cloth as a wadding and then put hand wipes around the outside, and the hand wipes were sticky enough that they could catch any of the swarf that went through. So I've got the whole thing is now cleaned out. I've put a gasket in there rather than bathroom sealant. I just think, well, maybe I'm being silly, but I just think it's going to actually work a bit better. And I've got the diff, which I'm going to get a hold of. It's got a lightweight buster, this thing. All nice and clean on the gasket face. And we'll lower him down. I really don't want to be trapping my fingers in here, so it comes to a point where I just have to let the fucking thing go. Yeah, he's in. Right, diff's in. Right, axle's a bit of a ball's ache to get on, but as you can see, it is on. Basically, what I had to do here was to, obviously no stub axles or discs or anything on this thing. I just lifted it up bare, but you can't really see that. You can see the jack is under the nose of the diff. I lift up each end on individual trolley jacks to line up with the airbags, okay, for the air suspension. Lift it up so that they align, and then lift the nose of the diff to swivel it around to get it onto these fellas here. But I had to swing the axle backwards and forwards in order to get it onto those fellas. It was a faff. I did it. It was on my own. Yes. And then I've built the stub axles up with new gaskets, new seals. And they're all kind of just ready for, well, what I need to do next is push the ABS sensors in from the back, put the brake calipers on, make up new brake lines, and sort the back plates out, which look like that. They all look like that, really. It'll do. It will do. I want to get this axle finished tomorrow. I was hoping to get it finished today, but I got distracted. as usual. It's one of the... I should probably just close the gate at the front and pretend I'm not here, I think, next time. Yes, rear axle's all in place. I want to get the mud guards in and stuff like that. Get all that sort of stuff done. Or I could do the sill. In fact, do you know what? Rather than doing axle tomorrow, I might do the sill. I'll show you how I can do one of these. Hey. Oh, what joy! So, I've been trying to undo the flexes from the T-piece that goes on top of the back axle to replace them. Got nice new flexes here. This one, it would go so far and then it would kind of like just spin. So I chopped the end of it off and then put a socket on it and started winding it. And basically I've got it now. So that it came to the end of its thread and it's still stuck in there. So what I believe's happened is the tip of this bit here, it's been done in there so tight that it splayed itself and then got stuck below the threads. Threads or threads, it's entirely up to you. So yet another fucking job I can't complete on this car because of ham-fisted bodgery. And it gets worse than that because I've got the brake line. This is the brake line that went from one side of the chassis to the other. And you can see it's got some fairly fierce bends on it. Now, if I mount you on tripoding, this is tripoding, you're on tripoding. Snap. Fresh bit here, yeah? So you're just trying to bend a curve into it. Oh, it's already crushed, trying to bend a curve into it. Cunifer would do this, it'd crush it. So I'll try and straighten it out. Now that's already work hardened at that point, so the next time I bend it, snap. I don't know what this stuff is. It could be just normal copper pipe, but it doesn't seem right to me. I don't seem to recall copper being that weak. So, I'm going to need another one of these. Plan of attack on this sill. I'm going to do something with this today. So I'm going to flap all of this bottom edge. Let me just see if I can get this so it can actually look at the piece of work I'm doing. Plan of attack on this driver's side sill today. I'm going to clean all this lot back. I'm going to weld in a flat piece of steel there, make sure the body mount behind there is good. This here, I don't think that's the bottom sill. I think that there's a weld here and there's a weld there. And this is all part of that patch. So I am going to cut here, right the way across the bottom of the B-post, and I'm going to cut this piece away from the edge of the sill. We're going to see what is left of the sill. Now it could end up being that I end up having to cut the bottom of the B-post right off. It's still attached up here on spots on either side. There's no load on it, so I'm quite comfortable that the B-post is not going to move. And I'll take measurements and so forth beforehand. Then I need to start looking really at what's going on with this rear body mount here. As you can see, it's in quite a distressed state. And it could well end up being that I have to... I mean, the actual mount itself is not bad, but it's the back piece of it. So we'll see. I have got another mount if I have to use it. If I don't have to use it, then I'll be able to just chop it out and replace the flat steel behind. Yes. So I'm going to crack on with this. I'm going to put the radio on and I'll come back to you. But this is starting to come together. Right, so I got all the... Yesterday, I got all of the back end of the car together. Big cough there. So I got the tailgate back on. Got the springs back on. Oh, my keys just fell out my pocket. I got the keys back on. Oh, look. Land Rover badge just fell off. How about that? Glue that back on. It's not the right Land Rover badge for it anyway, but... so this back end of this car now is looking good. That is weird how that just suddenly fell off, isn't it? How weird. Like I say, it's not the right one for it, but I'll get some adhesive and pop that back on. Replaced the rear light side pieces because they were a bit knackered. Made up a couple of new brackets here for the leading edge of the rear wing. Drop my keys again. It's Mr. Droppy today. Put them in my pocket. So over here I've got brake back plates, front lower cross member that goes in front of the radiator. all the brackets and so forth for the brake back plates. They look shit, but they're actually really solid, and I've been over these with a zip wheel, so they're okay. I'm going to paint them. And then these are the brackets I've made. As you can see, just welded a 1/4 inch bolt, and they go there like that, and they support and hold the wing against the arch. So basically pull that in. Yep. I could glue it, I suppose, but no, let's use the proper fixings. It didn't take me 15 minutes to make them up. I've used a nice chunky, probably getting off a 2mm thick steel there as well. Right. As you can see, I've got all of the sill closing piece and also the floor support as well there. So the objective really is to get this sill moved forwards. I want this sill done in the next day or two. Not this a day or two's work, but it's currently lunchtime on a Sunday. It's quite a nice folded piece there. I'm quite pleased with that. Should be nice and easy to work with. My folder isn't that long, and by the time I kind of made that piece, it's cheaper just to buy it. So, yeah, unless you've got a very large press, you're knocking these things out regularly, sometimes it just makes sense just to buy the repair panel, which is why I also bought the A-post repair panel. Yeah, sure, I could make that up, but there you go. Right, the bottom of the B-post is 3 layers thick, and it's got the rusty remains of the sill on the inside of quite a thick repair panel. So that's gone. The actual sill itself, can you see? Let's get the lights. 1 second. There we are. There's the light. The sill itself, you can see here. And I think to do this properly, I'm going to take the bottom of the B-post off. That's an easy decision. Then we're looking at, let's roll my chair over here. Then we're looking at, this is the closing part of the wheel arch here. This is the other side of where that patch was. That patch. And again, you can see the patch has been put over rusty steel. So I'm not going to fuck around with this because it's just a shambles. I'm going to cut this piece off on the other side, and I'm going to replace the lower part of that arch. Then I can deal with all this stuff because it'll give me access to deal with all of this stuff that's going on around the rear body mount. Relatively easy to cut this out. If I come around here with the lights, just literally just cut it like that. Spot welds around here that go on to the mounting. I don't know what's going to be there at the moment, so I'm going to cut the patch out. We're going to deconstruct the crap repair, and we're going to see what is going on there. Right, so I cut round the original patch. What we're going to find behind? First of all, there was nothing welded along the bottom edge at all. Even though there was weld along there, there was no weld. So I cut inside the welds all the way around, and I'm going to open the door, and look at that. That's the remains of the original arch there. And you can see the bottom edge of the body mount behind it. So, what I really need to do now is I'm going to cut out the rest of the arch here. It gets a bit sparky, and I really don't want to be risking my my camera because of the sparks. But I basically want to get all of this where I've started to cut the square, so it's separated already along the edge with the outer wing, sorry, the inner wing here, and all of this should be largely separated. But you can see how much this is dented and blown because of the crap and the rust behind it. So I think once I get it back to factory, yeah, so that while they had welded on the bottom, it was welded to a chunk of the inner wing, which is then rotted out subsequently. Yeah, I think what we'll do here is we'll get Mr. Reciprocating saw. And then we'll open that. Does that open? It does. Oh look, there's another patch. I don't know what that bit is off. There's a big lump of weld up there that's gone right the way through something. But this is just a flat piece of steel that goes in here, so that's relatively easy to get fixed. And again, we're kind of going down through several layers of archaeology, I think, here. There's another hole. Oh, no, is that a hole? No, it's just mud up there that's trapped up there. I'll get the rest of this sill off, and I will come back once it's back to where it should be. I'll let you know, but I really don't want to be kind of having my camera this close to all of those nasty grinder sparks. As you can see, the pile of crap on the floor is growing. I sweep it up every day. I sweep it every single day. I sweep it into this pile over here, and that is basically this corner of the car down there. There's quite a lot of steel down there. Dear. Right, unpicked it a bit further, and basically you can see the edges of the mounting. I've started to peel this back, but I need to drill through spot welds that go onto this relief. So that is more or less what the mounting looks like. Okay, up here you can see it's blown. So I think that there's rust in between this inner sill section up here and down below. Fucking thing. So now what I'm going to do, I think, is just ignore the fact that this steel's got holes and so forth. This is part of a kit. So I'm inclined to weld this onto here properly throughout, and then position this in, cut around the edges, and put the new mount on. I can't see any real points in keeping this compromised part here. It could well be that when I drill the spot welds, I'm able to salvage the mount, but by the time the mount's free, I might as well undo the bolt and put a new mount in as well, haven't I? This mount looks thick as steel as well, so I suspect this is probably 18 gauge. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's exactly the same. That's the wrong way round, Richard. It goes like that. Sorry, it goes like that in there. So yeah, I'm inclined to swap it out, I think, which will mean I really want to go through spot welds rather than start hacking too much up here, because I'm worried it's not going to go into the car, but I'm worried I'm not going to have anything to weld onto. And it needs to be a solid repair. It really doesn't want to be. I think by the time we get to this point here, we don't want to be fucking this up. So then we get the, let me go and get the sill section. I'll get just a short sill section, because it gives you an idea about what it is I'm trying to achieve here. Oh, where's it fucking gone? There it is. So we get a new mounting goes in, a new inner sill section goes in, and then finally a new outer sill section will go in. Okay, I need to kind of like adjust it and box it all in and so forth. Then I need to put a small plate on here just to connect up the bottom of the arch to this, and then put a closing piece on the arch. Okay, so that's where I'm going with it. So if I were to line that up like that, you could see it's more or less exactly where it needs to be. What I'll probably end up doing is just trimming along the edge here, jottle the top edge of this throughout its length, and then seam weld from one end to the other. And that way it will be flush on the outside here. Tell you one thing though. I found an equal problem. I've undone the nut for the bolt. There's not enough headroom above the mounting to get the bolt off, because it's tight up against here, which is why I've got all the sound deadening and stuff out, because there's not even a grommet up it. God knows how they put these things in. They must have put the bolt in prior to the body going down. So I'm going to have to cut the head off the bolt, I think. That's a weird one, isn't it? Anyone encountered that before? Is that specific to LSE? Interesting, huh? Interesting. Yeah, what a pain. Right, I'm drawing to a close on my my Sunday's activities. But basically what I've done is I've shaped this piece of steel, which actually came with the kit, roughly to where I want it to go, on the tail end of the, let's put it the right way up, Richard, on the tail end of the sill. Okay, so that's going to go down there. Now, welded it on. It's all welded on, just needs to do a tiny bit at the top there. But then I thought, well, when it's all in place, you can't actually access the inside faces of this. So I zinc primed it, and then I put a couple of coats of hammerite over the top of it. That section I can access, and obviously the paint is going to react when I start to weld it anyway. So that is really waiting. I'll put that on tomorrow. I've cut a couple of other tiny little repair sections. So there's a repair section here with a nice upward arrow on it that needs to go at the base of the B-pillar. Having cut the B-pillar off, I'm going to get a repair section because that is just, there's no point putting that back on again. And then I've lined up the outer sill. So I've got the outer sill lined up on the bottom lip from one end to the other, and I've marked where it interfaces onto the sill on the remains of the old outer sill. So what I'll do is I'll measure down about 1 centimetre or so. I'll cut it a nice straight line, then I'll joddle this edge so it sits up behind it. And it should produce a nice tidy repair, okay, where the repair is pointing downwards, so there's unlikely to get water trapped in it. Now, a little bit longer kind of than would be normal at the front end of the sill here, but I'm going to wait until the closing panel and the reinforcing piece are in place first of all. And I've still got to cut out all of the sections on the front half of the inner sill, but I can start working at the back end. I don't want to take the front mount off until the back mount is back on and secure. I mean, the body's secure because it's got the cross pieces across the boot floor, it's got the body mount on the rear cross member, and all of that is good. So nothing will have shifted. But I want to get the rear body mount back on, the sill welded back onto the inner sill before I go too much further. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. And then obviously once that's all done, they don't go right up to the wheel arch here, by the way. This wheel arch should have a box section which goes down like that. In fact, it's best if we look at the other side because the other side is factory. So the outer sill doesn't really go too much further than where the inner sill is. And you can see here, there's the box section. I've still got to clean this side up, but none of this is really badly corroded. In fact, let's get Dale's light over here. Beautifully known as Dale's light. There we are. So you can see there, that's the end of the outer sill there. That's the wheel arch closing panel, which I've tapped, and I need to do the same thing on this side. So this side's been unmolested, so I'll just cut an oblong out of here, get rid of all the crap, and weld not over the top of the original steel. So this side's a lot less complicated. But you can see how the gap is there. I've measured that from the tip of the wheel arch. It's about a finger's width. Oh, the wheel arch is still in the original location on this side. So again, about a finger's width. There you go. And that is that. And then all I really need to do is to make up a piece of steel that goes up here and replicates that piece, and then with the closing piece in there behind it, that'll look good. Back to factory, bang that back down again when I'm ready to put the sill on. I've cut a slot on the edge here just to allow the sill to, you know, the sill replacement sill to go up inside, and then spot weld that back on, and then whatever repair section I can get for the B post. And I think they're fairly commonly available for the 4-door cars. You have to make them for the 2-door cars, but the 4-door cars I think they're available. And I've got a post section here, and that will go on there when I'm ready to put it on. And then I think really we're going to have to be, once this is all welded, it might have to take a trip up to Steve the Body to get it painted, because this is not the best environment to paint this thing. And because I'm cutting into the base of the A post, cutting into the base of the B post, you can see the damage to the paintwork on the wheel arch there. It's going to need painting, but I think what we'll do is get the thing finished and all back up together with the inner wings and everything on before it goes up to see Steve the Body. That's been quite a productive day. Rather hoping to get the whole thing welded on today, but unpicking all of those bodges around the rear body mount and then working out what I was going to do kind of took a little bit longer than I anticipated. But I think that's the way forwards. That's the body mount welded in. I've done the inside, I've done the outside. Not very tidy up there, but I don't know what I was trying then. And then on this edge here, I've got enough now that I can weld a plate in to completely close this whole section off. I'll grind that weld there back flat, paint it, box it in. Before I do that though, outer sill, before I do that, front section, I've welded that piece in there, a little fillet at the bottom of the B post that rotted through. Again, just needs flattening back. Now, what are we going to do with the front section? I think it's going to be less invasive than the back of the car here. I'm inclined actually to cut quite a big chunk off down here. You see it's weakened there. You can't see because the torch is, so I've got weakness there. So I'm inclined to just literally just chop that piece out, weld that in, and then take a bigger chunk out like here, and then a bigger chunk up there still, the back of that body mount. Like, I need to unpick it first of all, find out what on earth is going on there. Because the body mount is more or less exactly the same as the rear one, in that it goes like that. Now I'm not going to touch this top section of this body mount. I think this body mount is in far better shape than the back one was. So really I'm looking for a set of spot welds that are going to be in that sort of region there. Drill them out. And when I've drilled those out, then I should be able to release the sill from the body mount, and we can start unpicking the front of the car. It becomes another step closer towards getting this outer sill welded on, which is my target for the day. Really? Yes, my target for the day is to get that outer sill welded on. Yesy McYes face. The back door can go on there. Yeah, that's torn it. Right, okay, I cut out a little bit more than I originally anticipated, largely because by the time I started drilling out the spot welds on this thing, there was just a world of pain and double layers and shit all over it. And I thought, well, I've got another one of these bloody mounts. So here it is. This is the other bloody mount. So I'm going to weld that on, off the car. And then I put a fold on it, see, because the fold needs to go like that. And then the closing piece for the sill will go over the top of that fold return edge, and then I just need to box in the rest of it. So I'll get this welded on first of all. Okay, probably could have done without cutting. I could have cut here, and then like by the time I cut it all out, it was, I cut this up here because it was kind of, there were some holes up there, and when I started pissing around with it, it just, like I say, it wasn't worth it. So bollocks to it. For the cost of the mounting, at least we then know that the inner sill is good. So I'll weld this chap on. That needs to be welded on like that. I'll seam around the edges, line it up with the bottom edge, which is kind of how it was before. Oh my goodness, so the bottom edge of the sill was dead level with the bottom edge of the mounting, you can see there. Yes. It's worth it, I think. I think it's worth it. This is I think it's worth it, look. Just about finished welding up the inner sill. So I've got the inner sill exactly where I want it to be. Looking good. Need to flat some of the welds back. Then I need to put some zinc paint in there, and I need to line up the bottom sill, the outer sill, which is waiting patiently down here on the floor, covered in grinder sparks. We're all ready, I think. Done a load of double checking, triple checking, quadruple checking. Trimmed the remains of the outer sill back, joddled the edge on the replacement panel, drilled a whole load of pilot holes along the bottom edge of the sill, which I'll plug weld. And what I'll do is, as I'm plug welding each one, I'll move along with the clamp, so the clamp is pulling it as tight as it possibly can be. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a slug either side of these screws, and then I'm going to start working on the bottom of the sill, I think. Yeah, I think we're about as ready as we're going to be. Coming together really quickly today. It's all that preparation. So outer sill's all welded on, flatted back the weld. It's going to need a skimmer filler over that joddled joint, really just to tidy it all up. But the outer sill cover pretty much does a great job of covering most of it over. I've just welded the new bottom section onto the bottom of the BC post, and I've welded in the closing panel down here on the end of the sill. So I think what I'm going to do next is work on the closing panel up here, that closing panel in there, and then kind of I could drop this back door back on then. I might just waft a bit of zinc primer over the top of all these flatted back welds. I don't want to be causing damage. Yeah, moving in the right direction, eh? Oh yes. Finally going to get on with this A-post because it's been doing my head in. So first and foremost, back doors back on, fit beautifully, just drops straight back on its hinges, no real issues. I think once that's all painted at the bottom and you wouldn't even know I've been here. This here, what I've done is I've peeled back the outer skin, left that reinforcing panel in underneath it, because this largely fits over the top of it, and all I need to do is trim this down to the right kind of shape. It's not absolutely perfect, but it'll do the job. It's somewhere for me to start with. Then I've made up this panel here. Looks very complicated, but it's not really, and the idea is that it fits over the inside of the A-post there, and then we'll weld directly onto the outside of the sill, exactly as it would have done originally. And then I can box that in with the repair section down there. Once this is in place, then I can start messing around with the floors. And I've started to really get the floors sorted out. So this piece here is designed to go there. So plug weld along the top there like it was originally, seam weld along here. And then this piece here is designed to fit down here. And again, same sort of thing. I've extended this piece a little bit in all the directions because I did trim the edge of the sill back a tiny bit, because the floor support will kind of go in about here, and that was normally on the end of this. So I've made this a little bit longer than it would be normally. I need to see if I can perhaps tuck it underneath like that. Let's get the water going in the right sort of direction, so it's not driving it straight into the joint, and then that might do the job there. All I can do up here is I'm just going to put one of my fire blankets across the top. There's no fuel in the lines, there's no brake fluid in the lines, so I think we'll be okay. The brake lines are going to get replaced anyway. They could probably just bend out of the way, couldn't they? Because they're going to get replaced. So it's the fuel lines I really need to be careful of. And we can start actually getting this corner finished and back together again. Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it, Richard? Do you know what? Yes, it would. Because the pile of crap down here is getting bigger. That is some pile of crap, isn't it? That's all from this side. Some of it is, if we go down to right down to the bottom edge of it, some of this is going to be bulkhead, but not a lot of it. Most of this is sills. And, you know, closing places. Bottom of the A-post. I think that was a bit of the floor that I chopped out, because it was just rotten. Yeah. Should get a couple of beers when I weigh that lot in, eh? Right, I'm going to get on with this now. So all I'm really doing here, I'll zinc prime this, I'll zinc prime that, and then what I tend to, well, when it's all locked up in position, this is here, what I'll do, because there's no point zinc priming that, because I'm going to weld that, but when I kind of go down to here, there will be zinc primer on the outside of the sill. So I use like a wire brush on my drill just to clean the metal back to bare steel on the through the hole, and I can weld it. It seems obvious, but I'm probably guessing that some of you guys probably struggle with that, because while it says it's weld through, it doesn't weld very nicely through it, in my experience. Yes, it's nice to have the back door back on it. I'm rather hoping that all the pipe work and stuff has arrived so I can put the fuel tank in. We're struggling, BBS Reman are struggling with the modulator traction control unit. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. We'll see. We will see. Right, in the meantime, however, I'm going to crack on with the structural works and get this thing a bit closer. Well, I remembered to bring the camera into work today. Silly arse. Right, so yesterday I got myself busy, boxed all of this floor section. It's been percussed there because I had to beat it down onto the top of the rail. But once the welds in here have been flatted back, That'll be fine. I need to box in this side here, so there's a panel going to go along, and then, like the original bulkhead side would have been, then seam seal the fuck out of it. And that's heading in the right direction. I made up the closing panel at the back here. You've seen that already. Back doors on. You've seen that already, I'm sure. Yes. Oh, doesn't that shut nicely? There you go. And then the other thing I did was put all of the rear hubs together. ABS sensors. One of the problems you're going to find with the ABS sensor, the tube that the ABS sensor goes into will have, and I kept them. What did I do with them? Oh, that's great presentation there, Richard. That really that worked beautifully. That did. But where the sensor, there's a sensor there. Where the sensor goes in, there's like a brass ring, serrated ring that goes around the outside of it. I don't know what I've done with them. Yeah, you need to make sure that you can push the sensor in. They're stiff. What I normally do is I put the open end of a spanner on the back and then use that to pull it back in with my fingers. If they're any tighter than that, then you've got to work at the hole, so to speak. So that the hole that the sensor goes into, you need to get in there with a wire brush, with a drill, with anything you can to clean the rust and the shite out of it. So I wanted to video that yesterday, forgot the bloody camera. So there you go. I don't know if that's going to help anyone or not. There you go. So I want to get that corner finished off really, and then I'm going to, once I've done the welding on this corner over here, so really what needs doing, I've got to make up the B post is in, got to make up the bottom of the A post to get that in, and I've got a repair panel to do that, which is down here on the floor, and then box the side in, and when that's all done it can be seam sealed and painted. There's a couple of holes on the floor. That one's easy. That one's going to be a ball's ache, largely because it's on top of the chassis rail, and the rust prevention that I've got on this car, it burns like I don't know what. You go near it with the welding torch and you end up with quite a big flame in no time at all. So I kind of need to be in two places at the same time. I mean, yeah, the obvious solution is to, like I've done here, is to take all of the the sound insulation, deadening, whatever off, but it's not always possible. So the other thing I need to do is to take these off and replace them. There is a bit of corrosion around here, nothing serious, but yes, I need to get that sorted out. I'm going to replace these brake lines as well before this wing goes on. But we're almost at the end of the welding. Almost! Oh, good Lord. So I pulled the passenger top mount off, and I think that the bulkhead support underneath is in fairly good order. It's salvageable. So I'm going to clean it all up, de-rust it, paint it, put the new rubber on the top, put the bolt back in. Driver's side. Oh, for pity's sake, really? Yes. So the big square kind of washer that sits on there is largely dissolved. In fact, there's big chunks of it down there on the floor. It needs something, I don't know what it needs. The trouble is, with the way these things are put together, you can't get the bush, the lower rubber out intact. I'd have to massacre that centerpiece in there in order to be able to knock the rubber out. I certainly can't weld a repair in there and not set fire to the rubber. So I've got some challenges on this one. I'm just having a think about where it's going to go, what I'm going to do with it. It's a faff. In good news though, I did that. Lots of slugs on there. They all need kind of flatting back and putting back into good shape. And of course all of the footwell is done now. The only thing I haven't done is those bits down there. Yeah, but for another episode, folks. For another episode. In other news, the brake lines on this thing. Where are they? What'd I do with them? I think I ended up... I took the two brake lines off that are attached to the copper lines that run underneath the footwell there. And I put them somewhere. Here they are. Here they are. Yeah, it just snapped. It literally just snapped off as I was undoing the thread, the threaded end. So I think, yeah, going to end up replacing just about every single brake line on this car. For another episode. Yeah. Now I can get the wing on this side in place, but until I've done this mounting down here, I really kind of want to kind of put all the wings on at the same time so everything's lined up. Then I can start fitting the bloody car out. Would be nice, wouldn't it? Oh yes, it would be nice. It really would be nice. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Give me a thumbs up. Buy me a beer if you want to. There's a link at the bottom of the screen.